So I grew up a Nintendo boy. There are a lot of, I feel, games that came out in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s that people consider to be their sort of childhood games, or games that really formed the way they would interact with media for the rest of their life and the way they would interact with video games for the rest of their life. I feel like that was, for a lot of people my age or maybe a little older, a little younger, that those games, that period of time was very formative. For me, I spent a lot of time with Nintendo games. Pokemon was huge, Paper Mario was huge, specifically the first three, Animal Crossing, specifically the first two or so, some Sonic, a little bit of Sonic, and Mario, just Mario platformers, and then The Legend of Zelda a little bit later as well. I was big Nintendo. I was a big Nintendo kid, and while a lot of people probably associate Final Fantasy with me as it's my favorite video game series, it's close between that and Yakuza, and that and Legend of Zelda, that and Pokemon, or aspects of Pokemon. But Final Fantasy is my favorite series. So, and I've made tons of videos about it, so a lot of people would probably associate me with Final Fantasy, but I never grew up with it. I didn't get into Final Fantasy until I was in university, and my friend sort of showed it to me. So, all this to say that I missed the boat on a lot of formative series that were maybe on the PlayStation, that were maybe on the Xbox. I never played Halo. And so revisiting a lot of these series, for anime as well, and manga as well, but specifically for this topic for video games, has been something I've been doing on stream. And for the topic of this video, I never got into Metal Gear Solid. There were lots of series that I haven't got into that were big and started around the early 2000s, late 90s. Metal Gear Solid was one I never got into. Same with Resident Evil, which I might do a video on later. Same with Devil May Cry, which is a series I really want to check out and may start streaming kind of soon. Or it may at least this year. But TLDR, Metal Gear Solid was a series that I never got into, and as I grew up, and as you sort of discuss with other people what your favorite video game series are, it's impossible to not hear about Metal Gear Solid. It's impossible. It's everywhere, it's iconic, it's legendary. Kojima is Kojima. You know, everyone talks about him, everyone talks about the series, it's legendary. But I never played it, and so when I got to a sort of lull in streams where I wanted to take a break from Yakuza before finishing the rest of the series, people suggested Metal Gear Solid because the Master Collection Volume 1, the ports for the PC, were coming out. And that seemed like the perfect opportunity to get into it. And one of my good friends, King Recon, who's an amazing content creator who I every few months do a podcast with, encouraged me about it. I know Metal Gear Solid is one of his favorite series of all time. And lots of people in chat just had such enthusiasm and said they'd be so down to see me go through the games. My mods as well were really enthusiastic about it. And so I said, why not? Let's get into Metal Gear Solid. And I did. And so I streamed all three games, all three of the first games in the Metal Gear Solid series, back to back to back. Starting with Metal Gear Solid 1, ending with Metal Gear Solid 3, and the wait continues for Master Collection Volume 2 so I can start 4. But what an experience, man. It's taken me a long time. I've been wanting to make a video about this for a year or more. I don't know why I haven't done it, but the VODs are out there if you want to see my full experience with it. Words can't really do it justice. The sort of experience we had. To put it out there, I struggled a lot with gameplay. I think anyone who plays these games, who knows the types of games I regularly play in terms of gameplay, would understand why I struggled. It's not an easy adjustment to make to go from the last stream game I played before Metal Gear Solid was Yakuza, or I'm really used to turn-based RPGs, JRPGs, into this sort of stealth action combat from the late 90s. I think Metal Gear Solid, specifically 1, is a lot to get used to. It was a little rough. It was a little rough for me. And so people in my VODs would get very frustrated that I would play badly. I was always having fun, but people would kind of not be down for my sort of gameplay because I'm incredibly chaotic. I don't do things optimally. I screw around. I took so long in a 13-hour stream, to this day the longest stream I've ever done, the final Metal Gear Solid 1 stream was me in the final boss of Metal Gear Solid 1, just dying over and over and over and progressing very slightly every time, and people just strapped in for 2-3 hours watching me beat this boss, while in the background, my bathroom was being repaired, and I had to be right back a few times over the course of a couple of hours as my landlord would come back and repair my bathroom, and then I'd play Metal Gear Solid, and then I'd have to go back, and he'd have to go to a hardware store. It was crazy. The VOD for this is on Twitch. I've saved it on Twitch, the full 13-hour VOD. It's also on my VOD channel, but I had to cut out some of that to stay within 12 hours. But yeah, anyways, TLDR, the gameplay, it was rough at first. It was rough. But it was really fun getting better at it. I think by the time we got to Metal Gear Solid 2, I was kind of getting to grips with it. And when we got to Metal Gear Solid 3, I actually think I did pretty well. I think I did pretty damn well. I think it was really cool to see the gameplay evolve. To the point where I think Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the best games I've ever played in terms of gameplay. It's got one of the best gameplay loops out there. It's just generally the boss fights are so unique and varied and fun. The ways to progress are there's so much thought put into everything. It's a joy. It's a joy. And even though I had a rougher time with the first one, and not as clean a time with it compared to the other two, I still look back on it fondly, and I'd be down to replay it someday. All this to say, the gameplay is a big topic about the Metal Gear Solid series, but you guys know me, I'm a story-first guy. And in terms of story, just coming to grips with what this was, I thought of Metal Gear Solid as quite a serious series. I thought of Snake and his design, I knew who he was, but I thought of his gruff voice, very edgy, and that's kind of true, but what I wasn't expecting was this insane goofiness, this silliness that pervades the entire series, at least for the first 3 games. I jumped into the series, I didn't play Metal Gear Solid, I didn't play Metal Gear or Metal Gear 2. In the Master Collection, there's a way to read the summaries of those games, and I did to be caught up with the lore, so I did all that, but I didn't play them, and so I learned the lore about Big Boss and everything before getting into Metal Gear Solid 1, and then we played it, and it was a great experience. I wouldn't say that it ends up being a favorite game of mine. It doesn't quite hit that level, but you can immediately see the cinematics, the way it influenced game narrative design going forward. The character work is incredible. The cinematography for something from 98, I believe it is. The voice acting, oh my gosh, unparalleled for that era, and even great holds up today. It's incredible. The boss fight with Psycho Mantis was an all-time fight for me, as the fight seems to jump through the screen at you. And all around, I just found myself really, really enjoying all the characters, and all the cheesiness, and the world, and Snake himself, and Otacon. And all around, while it didn't hit the heights of being an ultimate favorite of mine, I really enjoyed it, and it laid the foundations beautifully for Metal Gear Solid 2. Now, Metal Gear Solid 2... my goodness, man. I don't think I have to really explain what this game does. There are countless hours about this in video essays online already, but just slowly understanding what this game was doing, how it was saying it, the layers upon layers that are there, and the sort of fake out they do with Roy Campbell, with the Colonel, with him being an AI the whole time. It was so much fun, because I remember as I was sort of getting into the game, first of all, the start of the game is amazing and really sets the stage for the sort of recontextualization, or the sort of turnaround as you go, holy shit, Snake is so cool, he's back, he's more experienced, he knows what he's doing even more than before, and then we get Raiden. Great little bait and switch there. But regardless, I remember as I was getting to grips with the game in the first couple of hours, or the first 3 or 4 hours, and I'm just like, yeah, the visuals are so good, the gameplay seems very much improved. I was talking about the characters, and I'm like, and then I got to the voice acting, and I said, yeah, the voice acting seems really good too. It's just like, maybe, I don't want to be too reactionary, but the Colonel's voice acting or voice direction, there's something a bit stiff with it. But I've only heard a little bit. I'll see how it goes. Little did I know that was completely intentional, because he was meant to be an AI the whole time. kudos to the voice performance for making it seem that way in a way that I was kind of just criticizing. I'm like, he was great in the first game. He's kind of stiff in this game. That was why. Just amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. And you can check out the full VOD, the full playthrough. It's on my VOD channel. If you want to see me sort of slowly come to realize why his voice was like that and what he was. But Raiden, to me, is one of the best characters in the series. Maybe my second favorite. Definitely top 3 or so far in the first 3 games. I think he's magnificent. I think he's amazing. I think what he represents for the player and the hope he imbues and how he moves on from trauma, from his relationship with trauma, to forge an identity for himself in a situation for which he initially feels like he has none. It's beautiful. I actually really like his relationship with Rose. Up to you what you consider to be real, right? It's very abstract, but the way he forges an identity for himself. And we have Solidus and his dynamic with Raiden, which is great. Ocelot's great here too. I'm not going to go over everything. This is just meant to be a very casual, just glossing over of my experience with the series, but the character work to me is improved, while the antagonist cast isn't quite as, I guess, strong as the first game's antagonist cast. I think that kind of feeds into the idea of this being a cycle, a repetition of the story of the first game. Intentionally, it's meant to be a replica, and so it feeling a bit shallower in comparison really kind of fed into that for me. And then when we get to the actual twist of what's going on and the AI and what Raiden represents and all of that, it's just mind-blowing. That section, the last few hours of this game, I kind of played in a trance. Something that's hilariously and beautifully done is my mods, actually, that were in the stream, started gaslighting me and being and speaking like the AI kernel. If you check out, again, it's the chat didn't get saved for the VOD for this for YouTube, but if you go on my Twitch and see my highlights, the video is there and you can see what chat was doing during that time. I was freaking out. It was incredible. And then how it all coalesces with Snake, whose role in this game I think is better than his role in the first one, despite being a protagonist. The idea to sort of back out the lens and look at him as this person, this mentor, to look at from a more detached point of view, from the more relatable sort of Raiden, was genius. And the lessons he imparts towards him about the genuine nature of memetics and passing on what truly matters, and how it's important to, there are always going to be filters, but we cannot take away the humanity in that sort of concept, the inherent humanity in terms of passing down what is necessary. Despite the AI making very valid cases in a lot of ways, Snake antithesizing that by saying at the end about what needs to be passed on, and how it's something that's really beautiful. Pass on the things that are worth passing on. Be a filter for the next generation, because everyone's going to inevitably be a filter, but take in what you experience in your life. And all we can do is make a judgment call about what the important things to take from our experiences are and pass them on to whoever we can pass them on to. Memetics being just as important as genetics in that way, maybe more so. And it really speaks to me about the beauty of stories and why stories are so important, are life-changing, because they can teach us these sorts of lessons that are then going to impact future generations. And that's part of why I have such value in stories. Anyways, Metal Gear Solid 2, amazing, and really a gigantic step up from 1, and definitely a bona fide favorite for me. Even though the entire experience is a bit uneven, I think the character work can be a bit uneven. The primary characters in this, Snake, Raiden, the AI kernel, even Rose I really like, Otacon, Solidus, they're all really, really good. I think some of the lesser important characters are just shallower, again, kind of as a byproduct of the design, but I do think that doesn't mean they're safe from criticism. Regardless, despite the uneven sort of experience, I still think it's amazing. I still think it's an amazing game. And then I think, while 2 is this unbridled creative work that spirals outward and is so layered and so deep and rich, that is pure revolution to me, Metal Gear Solid 3 is more emotional and more polished as a full experience. It takes the gameplay to places I never thought it would. It's so much fun, like I said. The visuals. Also, I didn't mention the visuals in Metal Gear Solid 2. One of the best looking games I've ever played, and it came out 25 years ago. Incredible. And 3 takes that up another notch. The soul and direction and cinematics in this game are incredible. And it's more emotional of a story, this sort of anti-war piece, rather than being this really layered thematic piece. I think it's more of an emotional story that really unexpectedly goes into the past and explores the lore and mythos of how things came to be, and the tragedy of Big Boss and the boss. And speaking of which, just those two and their relationship is my favorite in the series, probably. The dynamic between Snake and Raiden is incredible too, but their relationship probably takes the cake. They're incredible. The character work just went up another notch in this, and it's one of my favorite games in terms of character cast. The music's incredible. Back to the characters, though. Eva, I think, is an amazing character with these complexes of what it means to be a woman and what she needs to do to achieve affection while also guarding herself off from that. My relationship with understanding what Eva was all about was so special. I think she's a great character. One of my favorites in the series, maybe top 10-ish, maybe higher. The boss and Snake, they are masterful. But also, Ocelot. He has such charm in this, and his relationship with Naked Snake, with Snake in this, with the big boss, is wonderful. Wonderfully shonen, and so much fun. And really endeared me to the character, and I hope we get more of him going forward in the series. But the boss fights, the spectacle, the indescribable relationship between Snake and the boss, this motherly mentor, elements of lover, defies description, transcendent sort of relationship. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's one of my favorite in video games, and it transfixed me. And that final fight is beyond words, and they really just nailed it home with one of the most powerful conclusions I've ever seen in a game, with the salute and the torturous walk from the office. Metal Gear Solid 3 is slightly, because of the sheer emotions, the wonderful, cohesive, thematic piece it is, while also really driving home the best character work in the series overall, the best direction. Of course, some of that is just a progression of technology, but also just, I think, there's a little bit of a step up regardless. And just all around being this incredibly cohesive, wonderful package. Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of the best games I've ever played, and the best game so far, even though 2 is really close to it, in the series. So yeah, that's just a bit of a breakdown of my experience with the series. I love it. It's one of the premier series I can think of when it comes to video games. It's definitely up there as one of my favorites. It's probably behind the likes of Legend of Zelda, Yakuza, Final Fantasy, but it is a favorite series for sure. And I think it'll continue to climb up as I play more. I honestly, since the day I finished it, I have been waiting with bated breath, foaming at the mouth for Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5, and I think I need to do Peace Walker and another part of Metal Gear Solid 5. I've been waiting for Master Collection Volume 2 to come out so I can stream it. I know everyone's going to say you can do it from the PS3 if you use some sort of, if you buy some extra piece. I can't, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work with my computer. Getting a emulator does not work. I can't do it. Guys, I promise you, I've tried. So I gotta wait patiently for Master Collection Volume 2. I assume it'll come out after the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, which comes out this summer, I think in June or July? Maybe August? I don't know. Sometime in the summer. So hopefully the wait won't be super long. Maybe I can have it this year. Either way, ever since I finished it, I've been dying to play Metal Gear Solid 4 next. We will get there eventually. We'll be able to stream it eventually, and when we do, it will be legendary. But not yet. It's not out. When it does, though, I'll be there as soon as I can. So yeah, just wanted to get my thoughts out there about this awesome series and my experience with it, and, you know, learning about it and experiencing it as an adult. It kind of came at the perfect time for me, for my taste and for what I appreciate, and for seeing sort of the history of the industry that I love so much. Video games are my favorite medium. to explore and see where it came from and see these monumental games that impacted the industry irrevocably from that point on. So it's been a joy getting to experience that and share it with you guys. And again, if you want to see the VODs and you haven't seen them, they're on my VOD channel, which I'll link in the description. And those special streams where chat was an essential part of it, or where I didn't want to cut it down, they're on the Twitch highlights on my Twitch page. But regardless, I just wanted to share my experience with the series in case anyone was interested. Really wanted to get this out there because I don't think I'm going to do a video essay on it, so just thought I'd do this. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something from it. Feel free to share your experiences with it in the comments if you'd like to. I just wanted something to be out there about my experience with the series because it's a special one, and I can't wait for whatever's after this. I've heard really interesting things about 4. I've heard that it's quite divisive. I don't know. And I've heard that 5 is divisive as well, but people tell me that 5 could really be for me. It could really be up my alley. And I hear, one thing I know about Kojima is that he's very experimental. From what I played and what I know, and I'm down for boldness. I'm down for it. Even if I don't like it, don't like everything about it, that's fine. I just want to immerse myself more in this wonderful series. For anyone who doesn't know, actually, my first Kojima game was PT, Playable Teaser, which is one of my favorite games and my favorite horror game to this day. I guess outside of Amori, maybe, if that counts. It's the scariest thing I've ever experienced. So going from that into Metal Gear Solid was interesting. Anyways, I'm rambling. Those are my thoughts on the series so far, and I can't wait until we can continue it and I can give more thoughts and share my experience more. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys around.